Greetings, everyone.
I'm back, baby.
It's Jake Ciely.
I'm great. Everybody else sucks.
Oh,
no. It's every nightmare I've ever had.
Excuse me?
It's time to check the link.
Pretty crazy, huh? But it doesn't matter because none of this has anything to do with the show.
You know what? You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time. Really? No.
I just put this in front of my shirt. Hello, welcome, everybody. What's up, you ducks? All in football because I want to do a reveal on the show for this one. This is one of my favorite ones of all time already. It's all in football. We're talking the NFL draft. Chris, Meaney, and myself. Make sure you check out Meaney at FTN. Code all in, all capitals. Get you 20% off over there. If you go to theathletic.com/betstv, all capitals on that, you get a first free month, so you can see what I'm doing over there. Skill picks, analysis for fantasy football. And the trades, which we're going to talk about, Chris, might be the most wild NFL draft round one of all time. It actually was on a trade front standpoint, but just the insanity. If you missed it, there's some live show happening over on FTN, which I joined at the perfect time, as Chris said.
You did.
Because they're like, oh, look, the big 4 wide receivers are off the board. I can go join Chris. I have a little bit of break here. Nope. Let's get the other 2 off the board. Let's get 2 trades with ripple effects going on. But yes, so Chris, today's show, my T is Wu-Tang Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yes.
You got all that? You got all that?
Yes.
You got it?
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Yes. Oh,
cream of the crop. Cream. Oh, you can't even see the cream of the crop rises to the top.
Oh, yeah, brother. Man. That is dope. That is pretty sweet. Man, I'm always impressed with your teas. Like I have been for years, and you just seem to continue to top them. I loved yesterday's edition, and this one does top it.
Tiny little cream, like you can pour in the coffee right there.
I love
Wu-Tang
it.
symbol.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with the Wu-Tang symbol and cream. Like that's a nice tea.
That is, I know, I agree. That's why I want to kind of like say. From now on, I could do like a secret reveal, so people can't see like right off the get. You know.
Yeah.
So,
and I kind of didn't even notice right off the get either. I mean, I'm a little kind of sleepy here this morning, so yeah.
I always struggle to point in reverse because the screen is backwards when we were doing it. So like over here, like so. Hey, how's that for a question? Right off the get. Wait, we're going to talk about the player value. What's your biggest? Is it the trades? Is it just this is a fun new NFL that this entire offseason in general? Like, what's your biggest? You wake up this morning, you're like, wow, round one was blank.
Effing awesome. Like, it was it was fantastic. It was so cool. I know, like, the offseason in the NFL was unbelievable. There was so much chaos. There was so many trades, like top wide receivers getting traded in Davonte Adams and Tyreek Hill, like that alone. But what happened inside the AFC West with Russell Wilson and then the Chargers loading up and the Broncos loading up. There was just so much madness, and Tom Brady retires for a minute, and then he comes back. Oh, no, I'm coming back. I can't remember an offseason like this. I just can't. I think back of when LaShawn McCoy was traded and Jimmy Graham was traded, and you and I were doing shows. Like, we thought that was pretty cool a few years ago. But everything that happened in the offseason, and then last night with the wide receiver run, and you're right, you did come on at the perfect time. We had that wide receiver run, and then I think when you came on, Hollywood Brown was traded, and we were kind of talking that out. And we were, oh, wow, the Saints traded up for Olave, and then Detroit traded so much capital and get Jameson. And then you were just like, oh, shit. I was like, what happened? And then Larky was like, oh, what's going on? Are you guys okay on your end? What am I missing here? Because I was trying. There was some people inside the chat live during our show that were kind of ahead of and spoiling a little bit, so I didn't want to really see that stuff. I wanted to watch live and see things happen. I
totally ruined that for you.
Totally,
totally.
But it was all good. Like when you guys said that, I kind of peeked over to the chat and it was like AJ Brown of the Eagles. I was like, no way, absolute madness and chaos, man. But the wide receiver market is crazy with those offseason contracts. I understand teams trading up and drafting these wide receivers, and maybe Tennessee thinking, you know what, we don't want to give $100 million to A.J. Brown. We're just going to draft Burks here in this spot. And the Eagles, I think, just so desperate for another wide receiver, and Howie missing on so many. Maybe he was just like, screw it. AJ's available here. I'm taking him.
You know what the NFL's turned into now? It's almost like they're dynasty teams. like for
Yeah.
Dynasty Fantasy Football, like, because, they're all out there like, well, somebody's about to hit a contract. Do I want A.J. Brown at $25 million? But yes, please. Hell, you can take Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard. You can take the entire Giants wide receiver core, and I'll trade you for A.J. Brown and his $25 million a year. Also because Galladay's making way more than Galladay should be making. But point being is you see that flip, and the reason I thought about this is because I actually was in a Dynasty league where a trade went down last night. It was George Kittle and a mid-third round, 309, actually late third round, for Mark Andrews and sorry, it was Mark Andrews in the 309 for George Kittle and Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk's contract is bananas, but you essentially traded tight ends. Let even call him even, maybe a slight edge to Andrews, but you just traded Christian Kirk for a 309. What are you getting 309? What is the NFL doing? Like, I get it. I get that you got Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks' best case scenario is to become A.J. Brown.
Right.
Let's just talk about this. We'll start with this. Best case scenario. And that's best case scenario. Like, I don't think anybody out there, and I'm not the highest on Treylon Burks. For fantasy, I like the landing spot because it's the second best landing spot given the opportunity and quarterback play. Well, we're going to go down that road, like I said. But you look at this and you say, okay, best case scenario. I don't think even the most positive Treylon Burks fans out there were saying that he's going to become A.J. Brown. Like, nobody was saying he was going to become a potential top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the league. And I just don't get it. But, like, what did the Titans do? If you said, Titans, we just saw you legit playoff contenders every single year for the past couple seasons. Again, should be. You got Derrick Henry back. Maybe even in the mix to be in the championship game. And what did you do? You downgraded. Like, what are the Titans thinking? Like, I don't get it.
I don't either. And again, you were talking about trades, and I think you said this last night on the broadcast. It's one of those trades that happened in your fantasy league, and you were just like, whoa. How come you didn't make A.J. Brown available? I would have given you a little bit more. I didn't think that the return was all that great, to be honest. I think the return for
Hollywood Brown. It was the same as the Marquise Brown turn. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, and that one's okay because I don't feel like he's on the same level as A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's a stud. You're right. He's an absolute baller. I think from a fantasy standpoint, we got to downgrade him a little bit. But I think it's a win for the Eagles. And yeah, am I thinking with the Titans? I just don't fully know. I feel like they still had a decent window with Tannehill getting a little bit older. I think he's pushing 35 or something like that. He's getting a little bit older. You still have Derrick Henry. You know what you want to do. You want to run the rock, play the play action. They bring in Robert Woods, who's a little bit older and coming off the knee injury. How much is he going to be able to offer? I don't think he's going to be the same type of player. It is a little confusing. I know some teams are wanting to get young at the wide receiver position, but this is a window that I think was still open, even though the AFC is completely loaded. So it's a downgrade for their offense, which wasn't spectacular anyways. And you're right. I mean, I like Treylon Burks too. I think he's okay. Like, I think he's fine. I think he's a good wide receiver. I don't think he's A.J. Brown like. I don't know if he's going to have the same sort of few years off the hop like A.J. Brown.
You want to bet money? I would bet money right now he's not going to be.
That he's not. Chance.
Yeah.
I agree.
And for everybody out there, and I know this isn't what Meaney was saying, and I know you're not saying this, but for everybody out there, get young. A.J. Brown's going to turn 25 in June. He's not 25 yet.
That's a good point.
He's 3 years older, not even a full 3 years older than Treylon Burks. He's still 25. Like, Titans, man. Like, you know what the Titans feel like? They feel like back in the day for people that followed the Bulls or the Mets for the longest time, theirs was a lot of injury related. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, it's teams that they try to play 3 years out from now and contender at the same time. Like, you can't do both. Yeah. You can't. And this is how, to take into fantasy for everybody out there, if you do play in Dynasty, this is how Dynasty teams fail, is you try to do both. You're trying to, like, well, I'm going to draft a bunch of young guys, but I'm also going to try and keep some of these vets to contend. Like, you got to pick a direction here. Like, and I'm not saying you got to go all in on vets to win a Dynasty championship, and I'm not saying you have to completely blow up your team for the next 3 years, but you can't play this, like, get out. Like, a good example might be as if you're a contender right now and you have Saquon Barkley. Sure, Saquon Barkley, he might be done, but I wouldn't trade him for a second rounder and, you know, like, let's say James Cook ends up somewhere in a timeshare, which he will, but like something like that, because I want to look towards the future. No, like you see, like, and I feel like that's what the Titans did. But I do want to focus on that side of. Oh, before we get to your side of it, let's talk about the Titans real quick and talk about Treylon Burks. Yeah. Is he clearly the number 2 wide receiver, or do you think it's London and then the rest? Because I've seen 2 different camps. It seems like there's a camp where I'm at, where I think it's London, Burks, then the rest, then the other 4. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people who say it's London, giant gap, the other 5.
I think it's yeah, I'm with you. I think it's London, Burks, and then the rest. And when I say the rest, I really like Jameson Williams, but I may have to. Out of all the wide receivers that were drafted yesterday, I just didn't like his landing spot. I mean, he's got the injury concern, which I do believe he's had a schedule. It sounds like he's going to be, on the field during training camp, maybe get some games in October, which is good for him. Obviously rooting for him, but don't love the landing spot. Don't like the quarterback. They also brought in Chark. They got a lot of moving pieces there. So I think it's London, Burks, then like Wilson, Olave, Dotson kind of close in there and into that tier. And then I just Wilson kind of right after. But yeah, just the landing spot for both of those guys is, I mean, Burks is probably going to, I don't know what you have him projected for, but I think he's going to flirt with 100 targets even on a run-first offense. And Drake London really, I mean, he's got Kyle Pitts there. That's the thing, right? He does have Kyle Pitts. I like London a little bit more as a player, but he's clearly going to be the number 1 wide receiver there. But there is a little bit, I guess, competition in terms of targets. Worst team, maybe chucking the ball a little bit more as well. We'll see what they do today. But yeah, it's those 2 guys for me because of the landing spots and the volume of opportunity. Will Cox in the house, want to give him a shout out. He's a good friend of mine from just up the road, a big Eagles guy. And I did not see that FaceTime there, so I'll have to check that out a little bit later on. But man, just chaos in the NFL. There's one thing I want to ask you, and it's selfish because it's one of my dynasty teams that last year we started just from fresh.
Okay, hold on before you get to that.
Yeah, I do want to ask
real quick.
Yeah.
So the Jets attempted about 50 more passes than the Titans did last year. So I want to bring up Garrett Wilson to this conversation in a second. I do want you to let you get your answer in there because so you look at that, and then if you go back to the London situation with Atlanta for attempts and passes is actually within this same mix. I actually expected them to be a little bit higher. They're not. They're with their 5s for the number 573. Is the number for how many attempted passes they had. Tennessee was 535, so Atlanta's in the middle because the Jets were 603. So the volume there still London. I agree with you on that one. Ask your question, then I want to bring Wilson to this conversation.
I could save it for like I guess it could kind of ties in. The Jets I think were really big winners yesterday in the NFL draft, getting 2 strong defensive players too. Right, I like Jermaine Johnson and Sauce, so maybe their defense
didn't address the offensive line yet.
No, you're right. And that was a concern that I had for them, too. They need to kind of protect Zach Wilson. That needs to be a focus here for them the rest of the way. The Eagles are not a team that throws the football a lot either. I mean, they started off throwing the football a lot, and then they realized their strength, which was the offensive line, to run the rock.
Either. They were dead last year.
Yeah.
They didn't even attempt 500 passes last year.
I know. And the way that they started the season was like, oh my goodness, like they're going to chuck. Remember, just like, we're not going to run the ball at all. We're not going to give the ball to Miles Sanders, and we're just going to throw. And then they figured it out, played to their strengths. So a bit of a downgrade, I guess, for
you know what happened?
For AJ.
Hurst was in there with Russ, and he's like, yeah, let's mix this thing. And they're like, get him out of the kitchen. He's not allowed to cook either. That's what happened.
No chance.
We're bringing that back. We're bringing that back.
I don't think their mindset is going to change just because they have AJ Brown. They're still going to.
I had a dream 2 nights ago, and Gordon Ramsay was in my dream. By the way,
no way.
Simon Cowell and Gordon Ramsay were in my dream. I was walking down a hallway with Simon Cowell, who wanted to bring me onto his network, and then Gordon Ramsay was at the end of the hallway, and Simon Cowell was like, no, don't talk to him. And then all of a sudden, Gordon Ramsay disappeared. So anyway, there you go. That's my dream.
Were they asking you fantasy advice or anything like that, or no?
No. I had no idea what was going on. And Simon Cowell also showed me his 5-story building he was building in New York for his home. So that's actually kind of potentially realistic. But anyway, what's your dynasty question so we can get back to Garrett Wilson real quick?
Yeah, just so for people out there, for me, I started a dynasty league last year, and I had Smith and I had Jalen Hurts, and I also have AJ Brown. So now I just have like 3 of those guys, and I don't really want all 3 of them. I mean, I think it's fine. I guess I could ride it out, but we're not talking best ball here. I don't like to have 2 wide receivers. It's nice that I get the quarterback from the same team. I might have to sell AJ Brown.
I could see that. Because
What would you do? Would you just ride with the two guys?
Well, I'm definitely not getting rid of with Hurts. There's no question about that.
No.
Because, real quickly, as a sidebar, Larky said it on the show last night, and I echoed his sentiment. It was we could see a Lamar Jackson MVP-like season for Jalen Hurts now. Like, we know the rushing upside's there. That was the appeal of Jalen Hurts. And if you go back to Lamar Jackson's MVP season, it's not like he was throwing 4,000 yards and 30-something touchdowns like Cam Newton did that one year. It wasn't even that, and he doesn't need to do that. But you add A.J. Brown next to Davonte Smith, whose rookie season dealt still with the injury situation, still some inconsistency, and then the number 2 wide receiver situation, as you know, Jalen Reagor lost his spot to Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
That just like that's all you. Dallas Goedert banged up again. By the way, you know me. I told you before last season, and I'm not changing my stance. Before last, I was off Dallas Goedert. I was done with Dallas Goedert. I was done. They were the Vegas nights of betting for me. I'm done. Stop fooling me. You guys keep screwing me over again last night. To throw that out there as a complete sidebar, again last night. Just throwing that out. I'm done with you guys, and I'm happy I avoided them last night. I'm done with Dallas Goedert. But that being said, Jalen Hurts could easily be walking into, I think, minimum, he's top 5. I think the easy answer is top 3, and I think number 1 is within the equation. I would say A.J. Brown is a sell in Dynasty, depending on what you get in your offers. Now, you might get some people who realize what we're talking about here. It's a downgrade. There's no question about it. A.J. Brown going to Jalen Hurts, going to that passing offense, even if you add on to 10%, which would get him to 550, they're still not even middle of the pack in pass attempts. So that's about where the Tennessee Titans sit. But the Tennessee Titans sitting at 540, 550 was volume for A.J. Brown. He's not going to see that same target share with Davonte Smith and Dallas Goedert that he saw with the Titans. So all that being said, if somebody still wants to give you wide receiver 1 value, I trade. If you can't get that, I don't. And I don't want to sit on both of them, but I would until I got a deal done. And maybe Davonte Smith is the one. Maybe people start to...
I was thinking about him, yeah. I probably could get more for him.
Maybe people pay up.
Yeah.
Thinking that he's the value?
Yep.
Because,
for sure.
Let me ask you this. Davonte Smith or Marquise Brown, who has the better year?
I mean, it might be Brown. It could be Brown. I mean, I like Smith more as a player. I don't think there's any question in my opinion. But just with AJ a little bit older, I think it was a good move for Arizona to get him.
AJ Green. I thought you were making an AJ Brown joke. I was like,
no. yeah. He's only 24, 25. Yeah, no. AJ Green a little bit older. Hopkins with the injury. Rondell, right? I mean, he's maybe a bit of a step forward from him in the slot. But I think I'd probably rather have Smith from a long-term standpoint. And I don't know. That one's pretty close to me. I think from a redraft heading into this year, I probably would like Hollywood a little bit more. But yeah, it's just for AJ, from a redraft standpoint before yesterday, he was a top 10 wide receiver for me, and I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking twice, like maybe upside to be a 5, right? Thinking about him in the 5 to 8 range, and now he's like a wide receiver too.
Okay. All right, so then let's go. How do we circle this back around here? Real quick.
Jets, right? You want to talk about Jets?
I do want to talk Jets, but we're still on this so we might as well bring in Arizona because we kind of, I don't want to come back to Arizona after we just touched on them because it'd just be like trying to follow along here. But so the Marquise Brown thing, are you completely off Rondell Moore now? Like, are we just back to last year, or is there still a glimmer of hope in the fact that maybe because we know what Marquise Brown is, and I think you say Marquise Brown to the Arizona Cardinals, and in that offense, he's going to be the number 2. So same numbers because it's a better passing offense, more passing in general. So he's the same wide receiver 3. You're going to be playing the roller coaster, Deshaun Jackson. Or is there a world, Chris, where, granted, they didn't make the trade for hoping this is going to happen. I'm just asking the question. Say, like, I know the Arizona Cardinals don't want this to be the case. But is there a world where Marquise Brown just struggles fitting this offense, turns into a clear wide receiver 4, has 6 good games, 4 mediocre ones, and a lot of duds, and Rondell Moore becomes the consistent, I'll throw this name out there, and I don't think it's a perfect player comp, but for fantasy comp, 2021, not 2022, 2021 Cole Beasley, and Rondell Moore is a top 36 wide receiver.
I could see that. I think there's a glimmer of hope. I think that Rondell Moore I think he's kind of a gadget guy. it was his first year. I don't think they're ready to give up on him just because of this trade. I still think he has a role in the slot, but there's a lot of pieces in there now, right? As much as AJ Green is a little bit older and Hopkins got the injury, Zach Ertz is hanging around there. I think there's a glimmer of hope for him. I don't feel like he's going to be a guy that people even consider, though, in redraft. He's probably, a hot waiver wire pickup. He goes through moments. In Dynasty, if people own him, they're probably pretty bummed right now. I mean, you could probably get him for free. I don't know where I stand on Hollywood Brown, man. Like, the inconsistencies ever since he's coming in the league. Like, he's a guy that could win you weeks and finish as a wide receiver 1 here and there. Like, he may have 5 or 6, to your point, 5 or 6 weeks where he finishes a top 5, top 10 wide receivers, and other weeks where he just has a dono or nothing. I think that will continue. I don't know how much of an upgrade or anything, like kind of like a sideways move, I guess, with Kyler. I like Kyler maybe a little bit more as a passer, but he's got some. I thought he took a step back last year. I thought part of it was on the offensive line, but I'm not a big Hollywood Brown guy. I think he's very boom or bust. I don't think that's going to change. I think that's going to stay put. I guess he's leaving a team that ran the ball all the time in Baltimore, and maybe they won't run it as much there in Arizona. Maybe we can upgrade him for a couple more targets, but I don't know, man. I'm not a big Hollywood guy. I don't know where you stand on Hollywood.
No, I actually haven't ever had Hollywood as drafted for my teams. I've traded for him once or twice just for value, but I just never. It's that Deshaun Jackson.
I don't like the floor.
And that's the floor. Is you deal with that floor a lot. Speaking of, answer a couple of these questions real quick. Justin, for the George Pickens Sky Moore thing, we are going to do a Monday show with Jeff and myself, so we're going to cover round 2, 3, 4, actually the rest of it, and then next Wednesday we're back to the normal time. With Lauren, we're going to talk the rankings because I'm updating the rankings over at The Athletic if you want to check it out. By the way, again, code BetsTV at the end. TheAthletic.com/BetsTV. First free month, I'm going to update the rankings. Dynasty 2 for Monday. So we'll be talking about those Monday and Wednesday next week. Like I said, Monday's Jeff, so we'll cover that. The Murray's arm thing, William, no. Murray's arm is not, one, it's not as bad as people think. Second of all, Lamar Jackson, even though having the better arm, ease of throwing it downfield, they both have similar 20-plus yard play percentages. And I think a lot of Kyler Murray last year just didn't struggle. His arm is actually very quality, and his placement on those throws, not having Hopkins, just killed him last year. You can look at the numbers with or without Hopkins. Yeah. So I'm not too worried about that. My concern is more just Hollywood Brown's play. It's just his style. So let's go to Garrett Wilson. Let's come back. We've been we didn't even get to Drake. We're coming back to the favorite wide receiver. We're coming back. We have to start with Drake London, but Garrett Wilson, yes. There's a lot of people out there actually speaking of favorite wide receivers. Garrett Wilson was their favorite. So whether you want to say it was because of floor, whether you think he's the most complete wide receiver, and I'm not going to argue with a lot of those things. I think Drake London was the best wide receiver, and his slight concerns are stuff that I think can be worked through, and I think he's just a dominant receiver. And you and I talked about it. The comparisons to Mike Evans are legit. Do we really care that Mike Evans doesn't shake defenders like the elusive slot receivers of the world? No, because not everybody can be like that. Guess what? Mike Evans, top 15 wide receiver, minimum. Potentially even better than that, especially if we're talking fantasy. Guess what? Wide receiver 1 numbers, year after year after year after year. We're going to get to London. So Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson ends up with the Jets, but he ends up with the Jets with Elijah Moore. Corey Davis is still there, although I think we can lay to rest the hope for a Corey Davis bounce back. Where are you on Garrett Wilson as a rookie and for Dynasty? Because that could be 2 different answers. We know this a lot of times. This is, the running backs especially. Is Garrett Wilson, you already answered the question. He said he's in the tier of the 4. Is he 2? Is he 1 for you if we're talking pure Dynasty? How do you like this situation? Because Zach Wilson is not essentially going to light the world on fire for fantasy purposes. They do pass a little bit more, and he can take a step forward, but you're talking about he's with Elijah Moore, who is extremely good talent in his own right.
Yeah, he really is. I think, the comment that was just brought up there from Lauren, the Jets crushed it. I loved this pick. I had this pick. I got a lot wrong yesterday in my mock. This is one that I did get right, Garrett Wilson to the Jets. I think from a redraft standpoint, it's, maybe pump the brakes a little bit. I would put him like 3, Williams, I guess London, Burks, and then him. I would call him maybe a 2A with Olave. I don't mind the landing spot maybe for year 1, but from a dynasty standpoint, I think Wilson's the guy that I want. Corey Davis is still around. Maybe year 1 is going to be a little slow from a redraft standpoint. I don't know. I'm thinking like a borderline top 50 wide receivers, so wide receiver 4 maybe. But from a dynasty standpoint, I really like what the Jets are building here, man. You're a big Michael Carter guy. I like Michael Carter. Zach Wilson, I do believe in, right? There was some moments, there's some bad moments last year, but also, let's keep in mind that he went to an awful team, like a brutal team. First-time head coach. Offensive line was trash. There's so many missing pieces on that Jets squad. I loved their draft last year. I loved their draft last night in the first round. I like the pieces that they got. Yeah, him and Elijah Moore, I think it's a really good 1-2 punch. I think it's really nice. I mean, Corey Davis is not going to be hanging around there for all that long. When we're talking dynasty, who's going to be the quarterback in Atlanta moving forward? I mean, great class next year. We'll see what happens with them. Tennessee, this is still a team that's going to want to run the rock. Yeah, Tannehill for a little bit. They might draft a
new quarterback today.
Today? I thought maybe there was a slight chance they could do it at the end of the first. They traded back.
No. I don't know if you saw my tweet before I went to bed. I was like, please, I'm praying this as I go to sleep. Willis to the Giants, Willis to the Giants, Willis to the Giants, Willis to the Giants. Yeah. Make it happen, Giants, please. No, I can see them taking Ritter or even Willis. Or I think Tennessee, Giants, Seattle, all in play for a quarterback tonight, potentially. I'm trying to think if there's any. I mean, Atlanta could be in play tonight. Ritter, totally. Willis. I mean, you still have Corral.
The Saints out there.
Remember when 4 of them were supposed to be in the first round 2 months ago? That was
one. Wow, and not even Willis, who I do like the most out of the quarterback class. Seattle's got 2 picks here early in the second. They could do that. I think. What would you? Didn't we talk about this last week on the show, Jake? Willis to Seattle, the potential that could happen here. Don't they have?
It could, and they have 2 picks.
They have 2. They have pick 40 and 41.
They could use one of them to move up to 33. You got to know the Bucks have been fielding calls since last night.
Bucks, Vikings.
And real quick, as a complete sidebar to this, so the Bucks being at 33 because of the trade situation, all that type of stuff, it's a Tom Brady team. This feels like this is normally the Patriots. Is this not always the case? Tom Brady's team is always sitting there as in yes, everybody wants to come for our pick now. Ha ha ha, we're here. In my mind, I legitimately went, oh wait, this is just another Tom Brady team trying to trade back, just like always. As a complete aside, whether you agree on Willis or not, as what we think, the potential, the projection, you think he's going to be a bust, that's fine. I cannot get past Pickett over Ritter. That's the one I was texting with Emery Hunt this morning, and everybody's like, well, it's the safe floor. And his point was this, and it's an amazing point. Safe floor, Kenny Pickett blew up in year 5, doubled his previous numbers of anything he's ever done. If you want to say floor, look at Ritter's career. If you want to say Ritter at Cincinnati, blah, blah, Ritter's career is floor. You knew what you were getting with Ritter. There's nothing, and I said it to you on the podcast last year, Chris, the most NFL ready. You know what people were calling the most NFL ready quarterback a couple years ago? Josh Rosen. How did that turn out? I'm just I'm just baffled that Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback in round 1 and was the first quarterback in round 1.
Yeah, it actually blew my mind. It's I don't know how much more I could add here, but I got some statistics. Obviously last season of 13 games, 42 touchdowns and 7 picks, 4,300 yards, amazing. 49 games in college. He had 39 touchdowns in 3 seasons before last season. 39 and 3, and he ended up with 42. A massive breakout, and I think you nailed it as just his age. So last year with the
Emery
breakout,
said that. Emery said it's going to be a quarterback competition. They're the same age.
Right, but he broke out last year playing against people he was 3 or 4 years older than. He should have broke out last year. Like the competition, I think for him, it was, he's, I don't want to say he's like the old man, the veteran there, but he really did play against some younger guys.
If you're going to build a narrative, at least stick to it. Don't sit here and tell me all year long, oh, they're putting up numbers of the ACC. The ACC is weak now. The ACC is blah, 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 and not include. And now Kenny Pickett's like, well, look at what he was doing all year. No, you just call the ACC weak all year long.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways.
Anyway, as a complete sidebar to that, let's talk Kenny Pickett for a second real quick.
Sure.
This is my very simple of the breakdown. Like I said, whether or not you want to debate Pickett, that's the side. We're talking purely fantasy now because that's what we're analyzing. Kenny Pickett can run some. He's still, I will give him credit. That was the best juke move I've probably ever seen for a quarterback where he fake slid and kept running. That is still one of the best. I love that. I will give him that. That being said, he's not going to rush like Ritter and Willis. And for fantasy purposes, like again, if Willis, Ritter, and Pickett are all starting day one, which probably won't happen, but if they all were, we'd beat everybody in fantasy would be taking Pickett third. There's no question about it because they run more. And what do we want in fantasy? And rookie quarterbacks struggle to produce if they aren't running. Trevor Lawrence, perfect example. Now, again, Trevor Lawrence got ruined by Urban Meyer, but we even started running towards the end of the year. But here's what I'm going to say is when I said in Kenny Pickett, the very simple version of it is Trubisky versus Pickett. It's going to be an open quarterback battle. We expect Pickett to win because he's going to be given every opportunity to win. You spend a first-round draft pick. You want him to start. No matter who it is, I'm not moving anybody on the Steelers. This is just it's the same value you're going to get for Deontay Johnson, Claypool, and Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Maybe as bad as Big Ben was, he peppered your boy, Deontay. He peppered him. Peppered him.
Deontay.
And, yeah, I don't know if – I actually could say with confidence, I don't feel like that's going to be – I would downgrade him in terms of targets.
Deontay
like
Johnson, you would?
Yeah, it's just slightly, just a little bit. Again, the quarterback play was pretty brutal in Pittsburgh over the past couple of years. And Ben, I mean, noodle arm, right? I mean, his ADOT was non-existent. It wasn't a thing. It was basically negative. But I don't know if Trubisky, for the game plan, I'm thinking it's going to be a lot of Najee. It's going to be run the rock. We don't want Trubisky chucking the ball 40-plus times, Pickett in there as a young quarterback. Like, let's keep things simple for him. So I kind of downgrade a little bit, but not too much. And, yeah, no matter where Willis goes, and we talked about this again, I'll go back to Seattle. If this dude goes to Seattle, it's not even close for me between the two quarterbacks. For a redraft standpoint, the weapons that he's going to have and his rushing upside that he has as well, from a fantasy standpoint, it's non-comparable. I guess, I'm clearly the Steelers did their homework, right? Looking for a quarterback of the future right there in their backyard pit. I didn't like the pick. I didn't like the pick.
And let's be honest, on a serious note, 3 years from now, you and I might be eating our hats. It's just really what it goes. Not only are we not perfect because we aren't NFL GMs, they're not perfect too. They hit rate in the first round 50%. They even said it last night. Centers are the only guarantee in the first round. They have 100% hit rate. That's insane. Yeah. Centers are the only guarantee in the first round. Like some of these players, like quarterbacks especially, what is it? Would you get? If I had to throw out a number, I would say 25%.
Yeah.
Just maybe 40. But
I was going to say 30, 35, yeah.
So they did their homework. Of all the GM reactions, did you see the Sean McVay thing?
Did you see when they? No.
Oh, you didn't see this? You've got to go pull this clip up. It was when the Patriots took Strange and this live reaction. They're sitting there.
Who the hell's that?
On this little. Yeah, no, not that. Oh, okay. McVay's like, oh, how about that? And after Snead was talking about it, and he goes, well, I guess we wasted our time. We thought he would be there at 104.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you've been doing prep forever. I've been doing prep forever, but he wasn't on my notes to be taken in the first round. I had to dig down, scroll down a little bit to get some analysis on him. But yeah, clearly just, I never know what New England's doing. Never. And Bill had traded, he traded back. I think that was trade number 85 in his history, draft day trades, which is clearly the most of all time. So he'd probably trade again.
He might hit again. Who was the offensive lineman they took a couple years ago that everybody was like, what? And ends up being freaking Pro Bowler? So
I don't know. They've hit
maybe
on
that's the only
more
thing he knows how to draft.
those type of players.
Yeah, I
as
was gonna say
opposed
that's the
to
only thing he knows how to draft is like the random offensive lineman. Like and then
the
everything
skilled
else.
players that
Don't
haven't really been
ask
working
Bill
out for
to
him.
draft the wide receiver in round 1. Like if they
Oh
would
my
have sat
goodness.
put and like took a wide receiver, or they would have been like I'm trying to think wow, I can't even think of that one. Brain fart. Let's screw that. Let's go to Washington. I was trying to think of the Ekem. I can't remember how it's pronounced his name. Of course, that's where my name went because he's got the 2 E's.
What,
in
St.
his
Brown?
Name, so. No. I was saying
I
in
know
the
you
NFL.
know that. This is a Notre Dame guy.
Now look, I was trying to move on, and now you're gonna I have to actually
All right, move
look
on.
it up.
We'll go to the Commanders.
Emezi.
Oh,
Emeka
Emezi, yeah.
Emezi from NC
Emeka.
State. Yeah. So anyway, now that you forced me to go back and double check his spelling, jerk. You could have just moved on.
People love it.
Sure. Not as good as the shirt. Real quick, I do want to answer this question just for fun. Do you
Yeah.
think anything happens to Jimmy G or Baker Mayfield tonight?
I think Baker gets traded today.
To
I don't know about
Carolina,
Jimmy
right?
G. Yeah, that seems like the landing spot, right? Pittsburgh's got their guy now. I don't think the Saints...
Well, not only just that. I think it was either Josh Norris or Evan Silva who said it follow the paper trail. They're the only one that have the cap room for it.
For Baker?
Yep.
Yeah. And is that an upgrade from Sam?
Darnold?
I guess?
Well, yeah, because it's Sam Darnold. But is it?
know,
I
but
think
is
okay,
it-
so. There's 2 questions here, Chris. Is it an upgrade? Yes, it's an upgrade from Sam Darnold. Is it significant? Then it's
No.
yeah.
It's
See,
definitely
here's the
not
thing.
significant.
Let me sidebar real quick, and you jump in on this. Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think is much of an upgrade at all. If I'm the Panthers, I'm not trading for Garoppolo. If I'm the Panthers, I am trading for Baker. I think Baker got too much hate. The problem with Baker Mayfield is this is similar to rookies in fantasy. This is similar to when we fall in love with our own players, is the hype around him and the Browns because of what was there. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, the entire offense. Now, the Browns are finally contenders. The Browns look so good. He's got so many weapons. Baker Mayfield, former number 1 pick. We've seen what he can do before without a player like Odell Beckham. The hype and the steam got so high that there really wasn't a way for Baker to succeed at that level. Now, that being said, he did struggle. He has struggled his entire career to be a number 1 pick, but he's better than Sam Darnold. He's not miserable. I would take Baker Mayfield over Daniel Jones right now. I'm not saying I love Baker Mayfield. I'm just saying if you put Baker Mayfield on the Panthers with DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall in his second year, Robbie Anderson, maybe they can revitalize him. Christian McCaffrey's back. I think it's good for the Panthers, and I think he's a fine mid-level QB2 for fantasy purposes, but I do think it's an upgrade, and I think Baker's better than the perception now surrounds him.
I do agree with that latter. You know what? Yeah, it's Sam Darnold's pretty brutal, and he's awful, and he had so many picks, and they couldn't trust that guy. I get it. So it would be an upgrade. You know, Baker isn't as bad. I agree. Baker isn't as bad as what people let on. And last year, I'm willing to kind of write it off. I mean, the guy played through so many injuries last season, and Odell was hurt, right? There was multiple times where they just had Jarvis Landry there on the roster, and they wanted to run the rock, so we didn't really get a feel of what Baker could do. But there were moments the year before. I mean, he brought them to the playoffs. They had that win against the Steelers, which was fantastic. Like you could see the upside. I thought he had a great playoff game against the Chiefs as well. He hung around in that game. I think he started off really strong last year in the first game of the season against the Chiefs as well. You could see the upside on full display. But he's never. They've never really taken the wheels off of him and let him just go. Like it's always just been like, nah, we're running here. You're gonna throw the ball 20 plus times. The Kitchens year I don't think that was on Baker, like just some pathetic play calling. So yeah, I mean, you move over to Carolina, you got CMC out of the backfield. We're obviously speculating here, but DJ Morris, who's got 2 really, really strong weapons there. So yeah, I think it's an okay move. I don't think it would put Carolina over the top. Like, I agree, I'd rather trade for Baker than Jimmy G. If Carolina was a complete contender, like a really strong contender, then I could see maybe taking Jimmy G. But at the end of the day, he'd probably be the reason you lost. Ask Stan Fran. But I think he's more capable of getting to where maybe a team wants to go. But if you're looking to the future, you do want to take a shot on Baker. I think Baker does get traded today. Carolina seems like a good landing spot. I think San Fran is stuck with Jimmy. I just think it didn't work out with the offseason. I don't
think they're upset about that, not knowing what I mean, we don't know for sure with Trey Lance. Yeah.
Yeah. They just lost to the Super Bowl champs with Jimmy G, right? So they can get back.
Hey, let me sidebar, Chris. I think let me sidebar on this show is the first time I said let me sidebar in the history of the show. And I think I said let me sidebar twice. So let me sidebar and say, Fischette, you can be banned from the show for life for your comments forever. As let me sidebar onto this next wide receiver and continue. Let's get back to Drake London. We wanted to talk about Drake London. We didn't even start with Drake London. We kind of buried Drake London. Well, at this point, is there much to say for Drake London besides he's the best wide receiver for the rookies? And whether you thought Wilson was better, whether you thought Williams was better, the opportunity was similar to the Packers. It's like if we see this opportunity in the landing spot for the volume, it's arguably the number one wide receiver, or at least in that conversation. But he ended up with Atlanta, and that's all we care about. He's walking into 120, 130, 140 targets, number one for fantasy. Yeah. Top 20 rookie? Question mark?
Yeah. Number one rookie. Wide receiver 2, upside. If you
Is he number one in Dynasty too? Yeah, see?
I know.
For a second.
That does make me think a little bit. I would say yes, he is. I'm confident that Atlanta will get a quarterback next year. I think that they probably move on from Calvin Ridley, and he's the one there. And then with Pitts, do
you think Ridley ever plays again for the Falcons?
I don't.
Okay.
I think that's it. I'm trying to think long term. If this team is like London, Ridley, Pitts, that's pretty nasty. But that's
our producer. Let me sidebar. Put him in timeout. I love it.
He just straight up blocked him for 5 minutes. I didn't know you could do that.
You put him in timeout.
Fantastic, George. That's great.
I was trying not to call out. If you notice, I said our producer. You're welcome, George. Chris called you out.
Yeah,
I just like you put him in timeout.
I was
like
George.
Go sit in the corner for a few minutes.
Yeah, we won't blame Jake on that one. That's all GZ. Man, so London is a boss.
You hesitated Dynasty.
I did hesitate just a little bit because I am a sucker for Garrett Wilson, and I do.
Garrett Wilson, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Jameson
As much
Williams?
as I like the landing spot for Burks and stuff, let's pull him in. I like the landing spot for Burks, but I'm not sold that he's like one. I don't want to spend for Dynasty. I don't want to spend my top pick on him. I think I'd rather take London and Wilson.
Okay, so London, Wilson are 1-2.
Yeah.
Is Burks 3 or is Williams 3?
Yeah.
Because Williams. We know Williams is out for at least 4, potentially 6 games. He's with Jared Goff, but again, let's talk fantasy. We can poo-poo Jared Goff all we want as a quarterback. Let's talk fantasy, and let's talk about the fact that for 3 straight years, he had two wide receivers, minimum 80-plus receptions, minimum 900 yards, and actually the 90 and 900 came off the offseason, so it offset the 80 and 1,000. They both had 1,000 that year. They both had 1,100 the one year. Yeah. Jared Goff, yes, he's not with Sean McVay. Yes, Sean McVay was a big reason Jared Goff became a thing. That being said, he knows how to throw the football. He's a quarterback in the NFL. He's a starting NFL quarterback. Williams, if Goff isn't replaced 2023, if I told you today, Chris, this is how I want you to come across this answer. Today, Jared Goff is going to be the starting quarterback in 2023. Also, where does Williams rank in Dynasty?
3 or 4. I'd like him over Olave.
I'd put him
like
2.
him over Dotson. Yeah?
Even with Goff.
I like it. That makes me feel a little bit better because I feel like I'm crowded because of my love for him. I feel like he's such a game changer, and if he didn't suffer that injury, I feel like he was a top 5 pick, top 10 pick.
That's the only reason he's not 1.
Maybe off the board. Yeah, that's
Even with Goff, that's the only reason he's not number 1.
That's it. And people are going to shit on Goff, like you said. People are going to be all over him. He's capable. People say he doesn't have a deep ball. I don't fully agree. I've seen him before. Throw a deep ball. There's some accuracy issues, sure, but man, Williams is an absolute game changer. He is such a baller. There's 8 touchdowns last year, 50+ yards. The Tyreek Hill comparisons I think are fair. Deshaun Jackson in his earlier careers, like absolutely fair. He is just a really, really strong wide receiver. And I know if I'm starting my rookie drafts and redraft, fine, he's going to be at the bottom of all these wide receivers we're talking about. And I'm probably not interested in a redraft standpoint. But from Dynasty, I think you're going to get value on him because of the fact that he's a Lion, because there's Amon-Ra St. Brown on that roster and Hawkinson on the roster, and they bring in DJ Chark, and it's Goff, and you got Swift out of the backfield catching balls, and it's the Lions. I think you're going to see this guy from just a rookie-only standpoint fall to like wide receiver 4 or 5, and I think that's really good value. Just because he's a Lion doesn't mean that you should pass on this guy. I think he is an absolute stud, man, but London is like a complete throw it up to him, catch those balls. I think they can use him underneath, outside. He's very explosive too. That's the one.
One of them plays tight end, quote unquote.
Yeah.
The for all intents and purposes, the Falcons just created their own Mike Evans, Chris Godwin.
They really did.
Pitts is Godwin, like to a degree. Like the way,
Yeah.
like I mean, we've talked about it for all of last year. Pitts is essentially a wide receiver. His style is actually closer. I wouldn't say he's exactly Chris Godwin, but I'm just saying, like they got 2 monsters now and going forward. So before we get out of here, I think without saying it, we've kind of said Dotson's clearly the 6 out of the 6 drafted so far.
Sure. For sure.
I think he could easily step in front of Curtis Samuel and be the number 2. And in that case, I think you're looking at wide receiver 4 value, given that team, I think this helps Carson Wentz to get somebody like Dotson.
It does.
And not knowing if Curtis Samuel is even going to be able to play at this point. If no Curtis Samuel, I can see Dotson sneaking into wide receiver 3 value. But let's finish this off. Let's talk about Chris Olave. Now you have 2 Buckeye wide receivers atop the depth chart. But the big question is, what's happening with the other one? Is Michael Thomas... Is he coming back 100%? Michael Thomas, he did not play an entire year. What is Michael Thomas going to look like? Is Michael Thomas 90% of what he was? I will say Jameis Winston, better in decision-making last year. Touchdown-interception ratio, you see the difference. His passing accuracy, his completion percentage was actually a little bit down, but I'll take that if you're playing better football. And it wasn't down an extraordinary amount where you're like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? But Olave, I think, is great for Winston too, similar to Dotson being great for Carson Wentz. He gets open, probably arguably the best of anybody in this draft. Yeah, and Olave was in the conversation to be the number 1 wide receiver before he went back to school, and still was before the season started, and then everybody got enamored with London and Williams and all the rest, and Burks. So Olave with Thomas, all 3 of them. How do you value Winston? How do you value Olave? Do you think this is an effect at all to Michael Thomas?
I think this is good for Winston. I mean, we'll see what happens with the rest of the draft, but the fact that they traded up and they didn't take, a quarterback, and they had 2 picks in there, and I think they addressed the offensive line with the 2nd pick, but then taking Olave, who is, to your point, yeah, I mean, he's very experienced. I think from a dynasty standpoint, I don't love him as much as some of these other guys, but he's certainly experienced. He can separate off the top. He's a great route runner. He's explosive after the catch. I think this is a huge win for Jameis, especially if Michael Thomas comes back. I don't know if Michael Thomas is actually, I'd probably say with confidence like that. Michael Thomas is so good. I know you're a big MT fan as well, but that 1 year where he broke the records, like we're just not going to get that anymore. I don't feel like that connection is going to be there with Jameis or whatever quarterback they eventually bring in the future. I think he's certainly capable, but even if you get 90% or 80% of Michael Thomas from that season, you still have a really strong wide receiver. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch. And Jameis is the winner, right? Jameis is the winner from that. I think he learned a lot from being with Peyton last year. I think, Peyton's not going to be around, but I think he learned a lot, like you said, right? To pump it back a little bit, take care of the ball, be kind of more of a game manager, don't take as many silly risks. I didn't see that a lot from him last year, but also who was he throwing the football to, right? Mm-hmm. Jameis Winston had a decent season when he was the starter.
Harris, who changed his name.
What did he change his name to? I don't even
Deontay. Or no, wait.
Okay.
No, wait. No. He changed it to something else. Wait, I forget. Anyway, yeah. On that note, Chris, are you live again tonight? Or
we are. Yeah.
Yeah, so
7
tell
Eastern.
everybody.
We'll be rolling through 7 Eastern right here. FTN Network will be with Larky and company. We'll be rolling through the first, actually round 2 and round 3. We'll be there, so we'll start to be able to talk about more quarterbacks, more wide receivers.
If there's
what
a
the Chiefs
lull
going
in
to
the
do.
draft,
Does
I'll
Green Bay take
jump
a
in.
I'd love to have you.
I was gonna say if there's a lull, I'll jump in, and then the shit will hit the fan. Like we'll just
and that's what I'm here for. I would love to see that again. But yeah, well, I mean, we'll see our first running back eventually taken off the board. I think what's going to happen was you and I talked last week when we were on this show. The Texans, they're going to get Breece Hall with pick 37. I think that's going to be a thing.
They can just sit there and take them. Watch them pass, just like the Packers did on wide receivers. Again, that's the best thing ever. I don't blame them. I mean, all 6 were off the board to a degree, but it's still funny. You can laugh and also realize that like the value wasn't there for them at the same time. So anyway, make sure you follow Chris. Go over the FTN, go over the Athletic. Back Monday, 2 p.m. with Jeff. Wednesday, 2 p.m. with Lauren. We're covering more of the draft. They're doing it live tonight. Chris, Meaney, Larky to everybody, so make sure you check that out. We love you guys.